Hello and welcome to another scrapbooking process video. I'm Tracy, also known as MercyTiara, and I create scrapbooking process videos, project shares, tips and tricks, and more here on my channel. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to be scrapbooking with some of the cut files that came in the Outdoorsy kit from MercyTiara Kits, and I'm also going to be using a sketch from Creative Scrappers. And I'll show you that sketch a little bit later, but first let's start in the Silhouette Design Studio software here. I have all of the, basically there are two cut file sets that come with each MercyTiara kit. These are the two from Outdoorsy. I had that background file, which I used on my last page. And then the other file includes icons and titles. And I'm going to be using these two. So I just got rid of the other ones. I was admiring them and wishing I could use all of them today, but I'm only going to be using these two. I'm not going to resize them. I'm just leaving them the size that they were designed. And adding these trees was a bit of a last minute decision. I had some brown cardstock already picked out for my stash here. I'm going to be using chocolate chip from Stampin' Up! To cut the sticks and the marshmallows out of, but I needed to grab some green from my stash. This is probably Old Olive from Stampin' Up! I don't exactly know because it's old, but it'll do the trick for the trees. So now I have my cardstock and I'm going to cut it out using the grid lines that are on my Design Studio software. I know that I need a piece that is 4 by 4 to cover the marshmallow sticks and 3 by 4 to cover the cutting area that will include the trees. I'm going to flip back to my screen just to show you. See how I keep the grids on the background? I just count how many squares over and down, and then you just send it and it automatically, it was already set on cardstock, but I'm just going to change the settings to regular cardstock. I had it on heavy duty cardstock, and I'm actually going to choose double cut. This is something I used to do when I had an old Cameo before. I would just, standard practice, just always double cut everything. And I didn't double cut my hexagon file last time and I regretted it. So I am going to double cut this. It only takes a little bit longer and it just makes sure that it's cut really, really well. For anybody out there who's an expert on Cameo, there might be a way to like change your settings. I just like it to be as simple as possible. I use the auto blade and the auto settings, and I don't like to fiddle and mess with it. So I find that just double cutting is a good way to make sure that I get a clean, crisp cut every single time and not having to think too hard or write down the settings to remember for next time or whatever. So as you can see, these really cut out beautifully. I don't have my Cameo lifting tools, so I'm just doing the best that I can to pull those off. And as you can see, they just turn out beautifully. I'm going to hang on to the offcuts, especially for the marshmallow pieces, because I will be using those a little bit later. So I'm going to show you the title that I have picked out, and I'm going to link a video in the little card section up above, because I have already created this title and I made a whole video about different ways that you can customize the chipboard letter stickers, which are unfinished, that come in this kit. So I'm just going to summarize how I did it here. I have these thickers, they're chipboard unfinished, they're storyline chapter. I started by using a thin coat of gesso, and then I added 2 thin coats of this paint, which is from Color Theory from Studio Calico. And then I stamped this chevron shape onto the finished dried letter stickers using some Brilliance Gold Galaxy ink. And this is what I ended up with, and they're really beautiful. I love, love, love them. So it's not too often that I have a title already picked out before I even start a page, but this is one of those times. I have this photo of a s'more from a camping trip from a few years back. I just cut it so that I had a bit more wide of a border on the bottom, so it has a little bit of a faux Polaroid look to it. I just did that for a little bit of interest, and I'm taking out some of my kit here. This is the Outdoorsy kit from MercyTiara Kits. I have the main kit, the add-on, and the pattern paper add-on, and the cardstock add-on. So I will be drawing from this, and what I'm doing right now is just looking for a background. Now you'll notice that there is a sketch up in the top corner. That's because I am using the August sketch from MercyTiara Kit Club, the Facebook group, and so there is a link towards the end of this video that tells you the name of that group, so you can look it up and join. If you're a fan of our kits, you can join and play along with us. Every month I post a challenge of some sort. So far it's always been sketches, but it might not always be sketches, and you can use a MercyTiara kit to create a layout using that sketch, and you will be able to enter to win a prize, and it's usually a $25 gift card to the shop. So that's a really nice prize that's up for grabs each month. And you know, you're scrapping anyway, so you might as well head on over and participate in our challenge. So as you can see, I'm just picking out a couple of papers. I decided to use that cardstock, that coral colored cardstock that came in the cardstock add-on. And I'm chunking out a bunch of strips of patterns that I think are going to work well. I really want to use green here because it will pick up on the greens in the trees that I'm going to be backing with those from those cut files. And I really like this dark floral pattern paper. I thought that the dark pattern would work really well because it's a nighttime photo. It's kind of at dusk. You can still see the green on the grass, but yeah, anyhow, I thought that black pattern paper would work really well. Now, I do want these to be a little bit more narrow. I don't want them to run the whole length of my page. I want a little bit of background paper showing on either side. So I am going to just cut that down a wee little bit. I will cut it down even more later, but you know, you can always make it smaller later. So I err on the side of making it bigger. I'm just going to cut all of these down just a little bit and taking off a little bit more of each of these. They just felt like still a little bit too wide. So I will use that and that. And I am following the sketch quite closely here. By the way, the sketch is from Creative Scrappers by Christine Davidson. She has graciously allowed us to use her sketches every month, so thank you to her, and check out her website. I linked it at the beginning, and it's always linked in all of my videos as well. So here is how this one is coming out. I'm really liking it. As you can see, I'm following that sketch very, very closely. The only difference is I am going to put a little bit of an embellishment cluster over on the right-hand side of the photo. I do have these flare badges that are exclusive MercyTiara flare badges. They came in the kit, and one of them has a roasting marshmallow on a stick, and that's perfect for this page because I am telling the story about how I actually don't care for s'mores. I do like roasted marshmallows, but don't care so much for s'mores. So that's what this page is going to be all about. I'm looking through the frames and tags embellishments that came in the main kit, I believe. Yes, definitely in the main kit. And I'm loving that scalloped pink border. I think it works perfectly behind that photo. It's not exactly long enough, but that's okay because of layering. And then I also took that other orange frame, and because of that orange frame, I also picked this happy day embellishment. Now that is the wrong sentiment, but I'm going to cover it with some journaling strips. That's my plan, and we'll see how that turns out. But that just repeats that darker orange color in the other place. There's also some dark orange in some of the letters on the Hello Vibes, Good Vibes paper from Simple Stories. That also is among my pattern papers there. So I have these 3 clusters of embellishments that are growing on my page. One of them is sort of like the trees and the frames and the tag behind the photo. And then one of them is the happy day little place where my journaling will be, and the title's right under it. And then the other is that heart with the rainbow and the flare badge. That is creating a visual triangle on my page in those 3 places. I'm really liking that. And what's really anchoring this visual triangle and making it very, very obvious on my page is the presence of those 3 craft tags that came in the kit. Those 3 tags are significantly darker than most of the other things on the page, and they're a really great way to provide some repetition to make this page look really cohesive and pulled together. I'm also pulling out the Cartabella chipboard pieces. I love these chipboard pieces. And I'm just picking out a couple of little ones because in each of those 3 clusters, I want some repetition happening. So I've got the tags there already, but I would like to have some of this, just a hit of this really dark navy blue. It's a little bit purpley and a little bit bluey. And so I picked out a couple of chipboard pieces that will help support that repetition of that color. And I ideally wanted it to be daisies in all of those places, but I'm going to change my mind later on that. I am picking out some pattern paper to back these trees with. They don't have to be backed. They look really nice as they are, but I'm going to back each of the trees with actually a different color. You didn't actually have to outline around those inside edges because I'm only cutting the outer shape of this. I outlined it with a pencil, but I am cutting it bigger than what I outlined so that there will be, it'll be a little bit bigger so that I can glue it to the back of that die cut piece. So I really like how that looks. I'm using a precision glue bottle here. This is my Art Glitter Dries Clear glue, and I have the metal tip dispenser on it, or whatever it's called. I think it's called a glue dispenser. It's you have to buy it separately, but it is worth the price because it's really handy to have. So on a different piece of green pattern paper from the kit, I am cutting out a backing for this tree shape. And that gives me a little bit of variation between these 2 trees. They're 2 different varieties of trees, so it makes sense that they would be different shades of green. And that polka dotted green pattern paper is already on the page in the form of that big chunk in one of my layers. So that's looking pretty good. I'm so glad that I decided to keep that tree because I was gonna not cut it. So it turns out it's a really great embellishment for this. So now that I've decided how these are going to work, it's time to start gluing these embellishments clusters together. So I'm starting with this pink frame that, again, it's a little bit too small, but that's okay. Once everything is all layered together, you're not going to notice that it doesn't extend down past the bottom. I put my adhesive a little bit, I was a little bit too liberal with it. I should have put just a little sliver of it. I want this to be a little bit off kilter, so I'm putting it like that. And then I'll layer that craft tag behind it. I'll just rescue that little heart cutout because it's really cute and I might want to use it on something else. I'm pushing the string through the hole and then looping it upon itself so that I have this little twine up on the top of that. And now as I look at it, I think it was just, it wasn't quite right. So I'm just readjusting the way that some of those layers are landing with each other. I'll tuck the little trees under what looks like the Polaroid photo there. And now I'm going to do some outlining around the outside edge of my main page. So this is a piece of the cardstock from the cardstock add-on. It's basil and it is textured. It's textured quite a bit on one side and then almost not textured on the other side. I'm double outlining just to give it a little bit of whimsical, casual look. And I'm bringing these layers down just a little bit more still, and then I'll outline them. So outlining papers is a really great way to provide some definition and a little bit of like just accentuating the differences of where the papers end, but it's also a really great way to pull papers together that might not otherwise look like they go that well together. So for example, I have that Good Vibes paper with the words all over it, and then this floral paper that has a black background. Typically, papers with a black background and papers with a white background, see how different they look from one another. Outlining just kind of pulls them together and helps them look a little bit more like they belong together. Obviously, there's lots of repetition in the colors there. They're from different manufacturers, but they have very similar colors, which is, by design. That's how I design the kits so that they work really well together. I'm going to rescue the little scenic picture there on the bottom of that tag because I'm only going to have a little bit of it showing. And this die cut is just a little bit there's too much white on it for me. So I'm just going to fussy cut around the little petals of this daisy, leaving a little bit of white, but it didn't need that much white. So I think that makes a really cute die cut there now. And it adds a little bit of white over there. I needed some white in all of these places. I'm also going to cut out this rainbow instead of having it be on a white tag. I'm just going to use it as a die cut here. And I will layer that rainbow with the heart. And this is going to be my biggest challenge, is figuring out how to make this cluster look okay. And I'll come back to this challenge over and over again in the process of making this video. I'm finding that that big, bold daisy piece there is too big. That's okay. But then I thought I'd really love to be able to use this little scenic piece. And I'll have to cut it down in order for it to not fill up all of the heart, so you can't even tell that the heart is a heart. But once I cut it down a little bit, I might be able to layer it with the heart. That's looking all right. But then that daisy piece is too big. I wish it was smaller. And I could trade it, but I also like the small one up there. So then I thought, well, like maybe I want something purpley blue down here. And I thought maybe I'll just put blueberries on there. You know, we were camping. There's wild blueberries everywhere here in Nova Scotia. So that works okay. It's not the same really dark navy blue, but it's okay. It's also not the same dark navy blue as what's in the flower up in the top cluster. So I think it's all right. We're going with some version of a navy bluey purpley color. And now I couldn't remember how I had it. I liked it the way that it was when it was just laid on my layout there, but somehow between putting the glue on it, I just kind of couldn't get it in the same spot, and I'm going to go with this. There we are. And now I'll just add a piece of foam. This is the 1 millimeter foam that we sell an adhesive add-on bundle, so it comes in that. And then I'll put some twine through this tag as well, just using the same kind of way. And to make your string look consistent, you just want to make sure that you're always passing the strings in the same direction. So I'm going from back to front when I pull the strings through. And if I went from front to back, that would be fine too, but I just like them to look consistent. So just take a note of which way you're doing it. See if you've got multiple tags on one page, if that matters to you. It looks okay for them to be different too. So here is where I'm taking that Happy Day orange banner, and I'm going to put some journaling strips on it. And I didn't want my journaling strips to be on really harsh white paper, so I'm putting them on the background area of these flashcards because it's an off-white color. It's a little slightly pinky, beigey kind of color, I guess. So the first little journaling strip says, I know it's strange, and I did cut it so that it's bigger than the words because I needed to cover that little image that's at the top. And now I'm cutting out another chunk that will basically hold 2 more lines. And I'm going to cut it to fit so that it will cover most of that. You'll be able to see if you really look hard that there was something under there, but that's okay. And my next journaling strip says, but although I love all the ingredients. And then the last journaling strip says, I actually don't enjoy s'mores. And because the word s'mores is right under this, I could have just left off the word s'mores and the title could be a continuation of my journaling. But because I need these strips to be long to cover up the whole happy day, I decided to just say s'mores twice. So s'mores is part of my journaling, and then s'mores is also the title. The glue was already starting to dry. I would have liked a little bit bigger of a bit of gap between the second and third journaling bits, but it dried and I didn't want to pull it up, so I just left it. I'm using my .005 pen to put a very, very fine line around the outside of those journaling pieces. And I am stapling using my tiny attacher a little bit of twine on this too, but I'm going to end up deciding that that is just too much twine altogether, because the star tag that is part of the same cluster is also going to have twine and is just kind of busy for me, so I took it off. You'll see me do that. So here's that tag. That tag back there is providing an anchor for the rest of this cluster. And I really love sticking a little tag out behind something to provide that anchoring. And so then the other tag layered right on top of it. And I didn't bother putting strings in that green tag because, again, it felt like it was just going to be too much. Using more of those thinner foam tabs to pop this up a little bit off my page. And the thin ones really provide a very, very tiny bit of dimension. And I really like that look. They come in two thicknesses, 1 millimeter and 3 millimeter. And both come in the adhesive bundle. So I'm going to put one more on that, and then it's going to be attached to the star. And you saw me just kind of carefully pull the twine out of there. I left the staples in place. I like that look. Just adding that little flower in place so that it's adhered down now. And so now I have the clusters in place, although not necessarily attached to the background. They're at least attached to one another. And the last thing that I wanted to do was back this little Polaroid piece. Because my photo looks like a Polaroid, I wanted to use this little Polaroid die cut piece from the Cartabello die cuts that came in the kit. And I wanted to back it on something, but I just didn't know what. And I went with this black cardstock or pattern paper that was in the kit. It's 1 inch, and I thought maybe I have a punch that can punch out this shape so I don't have to fussy cut it. And sure enough, I have a little punch here that is the right size to provide a little bit of a border. It's 1 7/16 is the size of that punch. It's a weird shaped punch, but it's actually very handy. It almost always is the right size. Whenever I think, which punch do I have to use, it's almost always that one. So now I did distress the edges of that just to give it a little bit of interest, and just deciding where everything is going to go. Now let's back this die cut piece. I lost one of the little pieces, but I tried to keep the little pieces. And the reason I did that was so that I could trace around them. I traced a little bit bigger than the shapes themselves onto this cream cardstock. This is cream cardstock. It's textured basil cardstock that came in the kit. I'm going to use antique linen distress oxide and a finger dauber. I'm just going to go around it. It's smudging a little bit because I just outlined it in pencil, but actually that kind of adds to the toasty look of it. And I don't mind the smudged pencil at all, actually. So I'm going to fussy cut around that. Ah, look at that. It's perfect. And there we go. So I will put a little bit more of that adhesive on the back, and look at that. I hope that you can see in the photos at the end, I have one photo that shows the detail. Oh, look at that. So check out the photos at the end, because I think it shows even better than that little freeze frame that I just put in there. But I like the detail of the toastiness around the edges of the marshmallows. I thought about doing it the other way, but I like it this way. So we'll put it like that. And this page is pretty much designed at this point. Now it's just a matter of sticking things down, but I'm also going to do a little bit of splattering on my background. And back in the day when I used to do a lot more scrapbooking than I do today, and when I did a lot more splattering than I typically do today, I used to do this a lot, which is design my whole entire page without adhering anything to the background paper. And then I can just kind of make a note of the size of my layout and then do the splattering later. So I'm just going to put this cluster in place on the layout, but as you can see, the whole thing still is not adhered to the background yet. I'm going to pop this one up so that the whole embellishment cluster is popped up a little bit. And I like how those two clusters kind of enclose the title of the word s'mores. Now we'll just add that little piece up there, and I'm going to make a note of where my main clusters are with pen. And then let's just also note this corner because that's important too. I want a little bit of splatter behind where the marshmallows are as well. So we'll have splatter in 3 places plus that other little place behind the marshmallows. I went to my stash and I grabbed my Heidi Swapp Color Shine Gold, which I have in my stash. And then I also grabbed the Heidi Swapp Color Shine in Navy because I thought that might be the right color. But when I looked at my samples, I was glad that I looked at my swatches because it was actually too bright blue. It wasn't a dark enough blue. And so I, at the last minute, switched and changed my mind and decided my second color would be Mr. Huey's Navy because that was a darker blue. However, I hadn't made up my mind yet if I would actually use it, but I did kind of decide that if I do navy, it won't be with the Heidi Swapp Navy. So I'm just using the nozzle. I took out my fan brush there in case I wanted to use, like, I get really fine splatter from my fan brush, but once I started using these big drips, there was enough variety and a couple of little drips in there. So I thought that it was working okay. So I just went with this and didn't even use the fan brush for this. So lots of beautiful Heidi Swapp Color Shine Gold splatters. I left that to dry naturally. I actually didn't dry it with a heat tool just because I had to take a break anyways. So I just left it. I cut that part out, but here it is. And I'm deciding that that's just not quite enough. When I put the layout on top of it, it just doesn't look different enough. So I decided I would use my star punch. It's a star border punch, but I use it mostly for confetti. It's an older Martha Stewart punch. It was called Classic Stars. And but there's lots of different companies that make little star confetti punches, so anything that you have would work. I also have a heart confetti punch, and people sometimes have circle ones. I don't have a circle confetti punch. I wish I did, but I don't. But you could always just use a hole punch and just punch it over and over again to get little pieces of little dot circles pieces. So as you can see, I just kind of keep on punching because I want to get a good variety. Each of those little strips of stars includes 1 large and 4 small. So that's why I'm punching a lot more stars than I need. So I have a little assortment of different sizes. So my thought process is that, I'm going to use that heat tool after all, just for the very end. There were just a little bit of stickiness still left on those. It was almost dry. I'm just going to hit it with a heat gun and hit it on both sides. Helps it dry a little bit evenly. It does warp, as you see, because I used the heat gun. It's a little bit warped, but I never really care about warping. I find that everything flattens out once I put it in a page protector anyways. So I never really worry too much about that. But if you do worry about that, then skipping the heat gun will help. Just going to use a little bit more of that 1mm foam tape there to just put that on. And then I'll just put the backing, like the bottoms of the sticks, just stuck directly to the page. I think that's a really pretty detail. I like it. And now I'm just going to spread out these stars in the 3 different places, putting 1 of the big stars, they're all small, but the bigger star, and then 2 of the little stars in each of those clusters. There are 4 clusters instead of 3, but that's okay. I want to make sure I'm drawing attention to that cute little marshmallow die cut piece, designed of course by the talented Nicole Noasad, who does all of our cut files for us. So that's nice, but you know what? It's still not done. I feel like those stars really stand out quite a lot now and almost overpower the gold. And so I am going to add the navy sprinkles. I feel like that's going to make everything look like it belongs. So I went to my stash and grabbed myself just a shallow, I like these little shallow bits for keeping there. It's like a little what are those called? A little art palette. But I like that the little cups in it are super shallow, so it's good for putting a tiny, tiny bit of mist. I don't like wasting my mist, but my my fan brush won't fit inside of the hole of a mist container, so that allows me to just put a little tiny bit out. So as you can see, that just adds a little bit of messy sprinkliness and to my background page, and it just helps those stars to not stand out quite so much. They were a little stark against that cardstock background. So now everything looks like it belongs. I'm feeling really great about this page. I really like how it turned out. So the one thing that it feels like it's missing, and you might have noticed this already, but it does, that dark strip across the center does feel just a little bit off balancing. So I'm going to add a strip right here at the bottom of that green chunk of paper. I'm going to outline it because the other one is outlined. You don't really see the outlining on this dark paper quite as much, but it is there. You can see it wherever the colors are, and I think it's worthwhile to make sure that they match. And then I'm just going to glue that right along the bottom. I'm leaving it a little bit of the green showing so that it looks like a layer there. And that just balances and brings a little bit more weight to the bottom part of the page, which I think is important in this particular design. So here's how it all looks. And there are some photos coming up as well. Now, before I share those photos, just a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters who are on the screen right now. These folks help make this channel happen, so big thanks to all of them. Patrons get early ad-free access to most of my process videos and real-time unedited versions of my videos as well. And they also get a monthly live stream and behind-the-scenes videos of my room and my process. So if you're interested in getting access to any of that content or just supporting my channel to help me keep on bringing you free videos over here, head on over to Patreon and check that out. Membership starts as low as $1 per month. So I really appreciate your support if you head on over there. And even if you don't, I really appreciate your support in the form of watching my videos. Please leave me a like and a comment. It does really help the channel with the algorithm and so on and so forth. Here are some of the places that you can find me, including that MercyTiara Kit Club Facebook group, which you can search for the title of, because we're not big enough quite yet to have a handy dandy little title link. So thanks for checking out this video and watching. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.